Hi everybody, welcome to the show. It's Merlin Fulcher. It's Tuesday the 26th of May. It's been a very busy day of architectural journalism. I thought I'd share a few things that passed my desk, a few of the things I've been dealing with today, and some of the thoughts that I've had in response. And basically, it's just been entirely about learning lessons from the past, but also being optimistic about the future and how we need to embrace a more kind of human-focused design, something which focuses more on delight and the kind of opportunities to create healthy cities. And this stuff precedes the pandemic, and it will go through the pandemic, and it will be something which was with us for many years to come, hopefully, if we make the right decisions now. So I did a tweet where I shared an image of this, and it's called Odhams Walk. It's in Covent Garden. It's a housing development that was completed in 1979. It was designed and built by the Greater London Council. Now, Covent Garden is the real kind of beating historic heart of London. It's a fascinating place. It's so fun to walk around. Amazing old streets and buildings. You've got the Piazza, the old marketplace, lots of beautiful market buildings around it, and the Royal Opera House nearby, which has had lots of excellent work done by recent architects such as Dixon Jones and Stanton Williams. Really worth checking out. The Greater London Council had some very controversial plans to modernise and effectively redevelop most of Covent Garden, which never came to be, and that's probably for the best, frankly. But this single block was redeveloped, and it was redeveloped, and this was the project that was built. We're looking at it from above, and what you can see here is the residential elements of the development. And really, it's not just that you're seeing housing. Obviously, it's beautiful. What are we seeing? We're seeing plants, but we're also seeing terraces, walkways, a piazza, these garden open links, which are kind of exposed to the elements in a pleasant way on a sunny day, as in the photo. But also what this says to us, I mean, it's a sort of image of a healthy city, of a place where in our current predicament that you could get quite easily in and out of your home while social distancing, while not necessarily feeling too exposed to the elements. But this wasn't designed with a pandemic in mind or managing an outbreak of some kind of highly infectious disease. This was just designed around making a great place for people to live. It was inspired by a kind of hilltop town somewhere in the Mediterranean. It's just simply an idea to create delight and joy in the place, and also in life, and therefore a kind of healthy life for the people that would live here. Who lived here? Well, it was 50% council housing and 50% private housing, so it was a mix of people, and there was also residential around the ground floor level, and that's all quite buzzy residential, and it will, I'm sure, be open very soon to customers again. So what I'm saying here is that basically let's look to the recent past and actually say, we don't need to be too revolutionary in how we adjust to this new world. We just have to say, look, let's just design around the human well-being and delight and happiness, and also look to recent precedents, because this stuff is totally possible. And I think I would sort of counterpoise this with an example of something which is more recent, but less possibly useful as a precedent. And so this is the Strata Tower. It's to the left, it's the taller tower, and this is at Elephant and Castle, an area of massive regeneration in Southwark. Southwark Council had been pushing for regeneration for a long time in this area, from pretty much the start of the millennium. So this project kind of owed its genesis to a broader regeneration vision for the entire of Elephant and Castle, and that's a project which is very much underway now, and we might be able to discuss in more depth on a later show. This image is actually a bit of an old image, because it shows the Haygate estate in the right hand side, something which has now been demolished. Shows the Strata Tower, building which completed in about 2010, and this was a developer-led project. So it wasn't, unlike the Odhams Walk, it wasn't designed and built by a council. It was designed and built by a private interest. The architects, Hamilton Architects, and the developer and contractor, I believe, was Brookfield. Now, this is a joint venture, so it has an element of private housing on the upper levels with the stunning views, and an element of public housing on the lower levels with pretty good views as well. Not administered by Southwark Council, but I believe a housing association, Family Mosaic. I went on a tour of this building with the architects at the time when it was completing, and it's a fascinating story. It's a really great thing to have a look around. Interestingly, the private and the social or public housing units are exactly the same layouts, absolutely exactly the same. The only difference is the bathroom and kitchen fittings, which one could easily swap around to one's heart's content. So, in some ways, the people in the family mosaic homes got a pretty good deal if they were lucky enough to get one of those. And I've certainly never heard any complaints from people living in this building. It's got some wind turbines on the roof. They spun for a bit at the beginning. The idea was that they would generate energy to power the communal areas like the lighting and such forth inside the building. They don't go anymore, and I think that's possibly was a bit of a flop. But obviously the idea was that this could be a publicly beneficial project, both in terms of housing and the environment. But you see, in the current predicament, so we're talking about towers, and we're saying, well, how can you socially distance within the shared spaces within a tower? How can you make sure that people are sufficiently distant within a lift? How can you keep those lift spaces clean, and so on? And also, how can you sort of sell premium space, i.e. those penthouses at the top, if there's only a certain number of lifts that service those spaces? And I imagine the lifts are all under quite a lot of pressure in that building right now, and in many buildings like it across the city. So, and what I'd say is that while possibly this was all done with the best of intentions, it was still done with the best of intentions within the kind of doctrine and dogma of its time, which is possibly one which has come to pass now. And maybe we need to look a bit further back, and we need to look a bit further back to the recent history and to things like Odhams Walk, as examples of how to re-inject that sense of delight into the cities. And what's been really good, certainly the Odhams Walk image, which I tweeted earlier, has been extremely well received, with the remark that if we could just build things like this, we could deal with pandemics like it was a breeze, right? But also a story which has been very well received is that Southwark Council, the very council where Strata Tower was built, has announced an epic new architecture framework today with LHC. This framework is actually available to any public body, any council in London to use. But this framework, I've never seen anything like it in the built environment, in procurement, anywhere in the country, if not anywhere in the world. Okay, so this framework, effectively what a framework is it's like a directory of people that you can call on to do some work for you, and that matters. It's like a shopping list. So say I'm at home, I need some food, I know immediately where I can get these various things. If I'm a public body and I need to build a school, I've got this shopping list of amazing architectural talents which I can immediately get to build a school, or to get to build some housing, or to get to build a new community centre, and so on and so forth. And what's significant about this framework, about this shopping list, is that unlike all the other frameworks in Britain, frankly, and many of them, there are some good ones, but I look at them a lot, and a lot of them are really grounded in the idea of efficiency, and that means value for money, and that sadly means thinking that low cost means value for money, when, as we know more and more, that the more you save on design, actually the more the building ends up costing in the long term. This one is predicated on quality and design and innovation. So effectively what's happening here is that any architects on it are given an opportunity to work in the public sector. Many of them have never worked in the public sector before, and many of them, if you look at the long list of names, they are some of the greatest practicing architects who've won the Sterling Prize. So you've got Mikhail Riches, Field and Clegg Bradley Studio, AHMM, Alison Brooks. These are all people who've won McCrae and Lavington. They've all won massive prizes for their housing design work. We've also got young architects as well. So what I'd say is that what we're witnessing right now in the public sector is a return to that kind of architecture, which is all phrased around human delight, human well-being. And actually, if we can just keep on going like that, if we can really believe in this moment, we can get through this. And we won't even need to think about pandemic design. We just need to think about good design, because good design is resilient and flexible, and it'll get us through anything, right? And I think also just that idea of kind of rephrasing our approach to things it's also a framework or it's a view that we can use to approach some other problems that have arisen. So I'm sharing here an image of the Southbank Centre, and in London this is pretty much the sort of beating cultural heart of the city. It's a place people meet, people go to see shows, it's a place people hang out on that roof garden you can see, enjoy the views, have a coffee, have a beer, or just hang out, just do stuff. And the thing is obviously, like so many places like it right now, it's closed, because that's the official recommendations. They can't operate, and that's all right and proper to deal with the pandemic crisis. But that's completely messed up their budget for the year, and they have effectively announced that they will have to stay closed until spring next year, and also they're concerned about whether they'll be able to really reopen, because they are millions out of pocket, and they're now mothballing the building. And the other day I cycled past the Tate Modern. That's the most visited attraction in the entire country. It's right next to the Southbank Centre, on the most visited part of the capital. And that looked pretty mothballed as well. And I think a lot of places, it obviously wasn't open. And so, these organisations like this can capture headlines with their predicament. But we know there are so many more organisations like this, with venues and without venues, arts organisations, cultural heritage, community, so many, which are looking at their budgets right now and just thinking, how will we survive? And when the Southbank Centre was created, it was originally for the Festival of Britain, then it was expanded by the Greater London Council. It was funded directly by that public body, up until 1988, when that public body was disbanded. And like so many other things, it kind of had to find its way with a certain amount of public funding, but also generating revenues commercially. And so this is very much the sort of ecosystem that organisations live in now. They have to have fundraising, they have to have donors, and they have to make money through concessions and other things. And I think we need to realise that this is civic infrastructure, and this is vital to our cities. So we need to look again. We need to challenge some recent doctrine and dogma and say, actually, this stuff is so important. And if we can think about our cities around this idea of human well-being, of delight, of designing spaces which are themselves healthy and full of sustainability, and accept that does cost money, and that will involve more state support for them, perhaps for a while, perhaps it could phase back out again. But I would say definitely let's look to the recent past, let's try and restore some of that, and also restore it for those other organisations, smaller organisations which can't quite get the headlines. So that's what I've been thinking about. It's been really fun to do this show this evening, and do share your thoughts. I'll be back very soon with more interesting discussions. Thank you.